Ready?
Yes, sir.
You nervous?
A
You
little bit.
nervous?
No, I mean, was I
You're good
supposed to
go?
be?
Yeah, kind of.
Absolutely.
If you could actually be a little nervous, that would help it probably make it better.
I'll probably just tell inappropriate jokes or something. So
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
So everybody, we have our friend Jeremy here today. He is an estate planner, and as it pertains to all the videos and things that we do, we want to kind of bring content to you that kind of deals with the real estate industry as a whole, right? And some things that maybe a lot of people don't think about, like estate planning and all the other various topics that we cover. So to have you on today, we really appreciate that.
Sure.
Obviously, it takes a big slice of your day sometimes to, kind of make these things happen. But the reason why we really wanted to kind of bring you on is a couple things. Hudson and I, as being lenders, we've run across this a handful of times where, a seller will, want to list a property, get a realtor involved, this whole thing, and they've had a spouse that has passed, at some point in the last few years before they've listed it. Right now, they're to the point where they want to list the house and sell it. Our borrower goes under contract to purchase it with the realtor, and then title starts doing their research and all this fun stuff, and then problems start to arise as it pertains to that passing, right?
Okay.
So we know that if proper things had been done, maybe with real estate planning,
Yep.
right? These issues could have been addressed, and we wouldn't have had a deal fallout, a contract fallout. So, one, kind of tell me, if you don't mind, or tell us rather, how, why you got into what you do, right? What brought you here? Because there's always a story behind why
Sure.
somebody got into something. Most commonly, I've noticed that people don't get into an industry so much for the money; they get into it for personal reasons, right? And we were talking a little bit before the podcast that it was some personal reasons. So kind of share with us kind of what, got you into the business.
Yeah, sure. So I became a dad and lost my dad within a few months of each other. He passed away unexpectedly. So I'd say that was kind of my first experience, despite I'd been an attorney for about 10 years at that point in time, practiced litigation, company sues company, person sues company, vice versa.
Yeah.
But he passed, being the attorney in the family. Mom had kind of handed me the will that the company he had worked for paid to have done, probably had to be 20 years before or longer. When my sister was a kid, I was a kid, we were both minors, and I'm kind of reading through it. It was fine. It was basically, hey, dad dies, mom gets everything, mom dies, dad gets everything. They both die. Well, it would go to us if we're old enough. If not, it would, the court would have to set up a trust.
Yeah.
But very short. I'm like, well, surely there's more. There should be more documents that go along with this. So I'd say that's kind of what started me down the path of, all right, this is, not malpractice, what, he had done, but boy, it sure lacks. Kind of as you alluded to, that there's a lot more that goes into estate planning. In my views, it's always better to be proactive than reactive when it comes to that. And I think you all been on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like when it comes to at least my viewpoint, how I practice estate planning, probably a lot different than I think most other firms do, at least from what I've been told. I'd rather just sit down and get to know my clients. Have a conversation with them. Okay, like what prompted you to come here or give me a call? What are your concerns and what are you hoping to accomplish? And then it's kind of like work backwards from that. Something else I do, and I think this was prompted by, obviously as my own man, so to speak, when my father passed, but becoming a dad for the first time, I was like, wow, there's actually a lot of questions I wish I could have asked my dad about being a dad that I never got the chance to. And you just became another dad again a few days ago with a little girl. That's what I have.
Number two.
Number
Let's
two.
go.
Yep. So, I work with my clients where, I don't care what industry you're in. I don't think you get credit for doing what's expected.
Yeah.
If you're a estate planning attorney, okay, set up documents. Okay, I don't like to get paid for paper. Like to get paid for giving my clients peace of mind and setting their family up for success with a plan that'll work for them. But I also want to make sure you pass along more than your assets.
Yeah.
Pass along like your life experiences, your wisdom, your insights. So I'll send my clients out, questions to kind of get them thought-provoking questions. I look at it as where write letters, do a video recording. You can do an audio recording, something for your kids. And, I look at it where everyone wants to be there for, like the graduations, the weddings, the, buying a first house, your kids becoming parents themselves. But truly when someone's going to want your wisdom and your advice is when life gets hard. Financial hardships, divorce, whatever it may be, those are the times they're going to wish you were there, your wisdom was there. So, I kind of work with my clients, like, make sure you pass that stuff on too.
Yeah.
So it's not always about, I think one of the big misconceptions people have is that, like, oh, well, we're not extremely wealthy. We don't need a trust, or we don't really need a will. Well,
Right.
okay, maybe you're not monetarily wealthy, but you have a wealth of knowledge from life. Make sure you pass that on.
Yeah.
So I do kind of I'm not big on hourly rate work. Like I used to do that as a litigation attorney. You live your life in 6-minute increments. That sucks for everybody. So my view is I just do everything flat rate. I think that's much better, whether you do a will-based plan or a trust-based plan. The big difference between the two, and since we're talking about real estate, is with trust. If you do a revocable lifetime trust, nice thing with real estate about that is just for easy math. So you say you buy a house for $100,000. Yeah, exactly.
You got a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I'm not great at math. That's why I'm a lawyer. So buy it for $100,000. You die and it's worth $300,000. And if you have a will, it goes through probate, whatever, somebody gets it, they sell it, their basis is the $100,000 and they're paying tax on the difference there. If it's in a trust, you get a step up in basis. So if they get it, it's worth $300,000. That's now their basis if they sell it. So you're saving $200,000 in the basis there for that. So that's one of the big differences as it relates to real estate. But to me, there's a lot more that goes into estate planning. There's a lot more documents you should have. You should have medical directives or living will. Like this is what I want to have happen if I'm, as my mother would say, a vegetable, pull the plug. Okay, that's not legal language. Let's put it in legal language. Like, okay, I would want life support pulled if, it's irreversible or something like that, or a terminal condition. But you kind of got to ask questions beyond that. You'd want to make sure that, okay, even if you're going to remove life support, you still want to get hydration. You still want to get pain medication. You don't want to die of dehydration or die in pain. So again, it's drilling down, asking those deeper questions. And then it's the, medical power of attorney. If you can't, you're not terminal, but you're in a coma, you've had a stroke or been in a car wreck, well, who do you want making decisions for you? It's usually a spouse if you're married. If not, it doesn't have to be a family member. It can be a friend. It can be, an acquaintance, hopefully a good acquaintance or even a coworker. Right. Same with legal power of attorney, HIPAA forms, all of that. So that's at least my approach is to, as you alluded when we started here, to set up people for success so that you can be proactive so that, again, it's kind of giving people peace of mind. I tell people I do the things that everyone knows they should, and they just never get around to it. It's kind of how I describe it. Like, if you think about, most of my clients when I meet them, they've got, a 401k, they have life insurance, they have health insurance, they might even have some investments or some other things set aside, but they're kind of missing that top layer that actually controls it all.
Well, I think a lot of people too, they don't, when they hear estate planner, right, and before I got in the business, this is what I thought, is that it only pertained to having a home, really, and the assets that were tied to it. But as you're explaining here, estate planning isn't for a home. It is literally planning of your entire life, right? What you want to have happen, how to go about things, whatever it may be. And I think people miss that a lot of times is that planning, right? They wait to the last second. So, perfect example is we're expecting the new one a week or so ago, and Courtney then comes to me and goes, "Hey, I want to talk to you about if I passed away during delivery." I'm like, "What? I don't want to talk about this right now. Are you serious?" And so that's exactly what happens. Either the conversation, doesn't occur, or it does right before whatever is going to happen. And you don't have time to start putting those things together. And she's going to tell me, "Well, I'm the only person that knows. I don't have a power of attorney over. We're not married, right?" So there's a lot of crazy that goes along with that. So I think people need to start looking at all of these other facets of their life of how to obviously become wealthy and gain real estate, in my opinion, but how to plan for it, right?
Sure.
People miss that. So my question then, we obviously know it's important and we'll dive more into it, but what is the cost typically associated, for different things? Let's say putting a trust together or whatever it may be, right? I would assume it's not astronomically expensive.
It's not in comparison. So if you look at, again, you have 3 options in Texas. You can die without a will or without a trust. That's called die and intestate, where your entire estate, everything you own, will go through the probate system. You'll have a judge, doesn't know you or your family, trying to figure out who should get what. There's no guidance. There's no direction. You can die with a will, or you get a little bit more direction maybe over who raises your kids, and if you have some specific bequeaths in there, so who's going to get what there. Or you can die with a trust, and that's part of trusts is they avoid probate altogether. Much quicker, much cheaper in the long run. And, I think it's, last stats that I look at, the total cost to probate a will in Texas is anywhere between like 2 and 5% of your total estate value. Is kind of what you, again, it's an estimate, what you might spend on probating the estate plus the time. The other thing is that if you have a will, they're easily contested. So someone could say, oh, well, no, I don't really think that's what mom meant, or she wasn't, she didn't have capacity to do it. And you just get infighting, and then that number may go up astronomically as how much it's going to cost you. And again, it may actually dissolve, family relationships as well, too.
Which it seems to be the case almost every time somebody passes away when they don't have a trust put in place. I mean, even with a will. Right. I've had grandparents pass away, and that has been the case every freaking time.
Knives come out.
Every time. Yep. I'm like, you guys loved each other last week. What happened?
So you get a lot more privacy with a trust. You pass away with the trust. It's a conversation in a lawyer's office. You change the trustee. You change the beneficiary, and it's completely private. That's the other thing. Wills that most people don't realize is probate court. That's public. You can go down there. You can see who's getting what, how much they just inherited. Usually things you wouldn't really want out there in public. But cost-wise, let's be honest. You can do, like LegalZoom, or, you could probably use ChatGPT or give that a shot if you wanted to. I'm not a fan of it, and it's not just because I'm a lawyer. I tell people it's a lot like microwaving a steak. It'll get cooked, but it's probably not going to turn out how you would want it to. Yeah. So, for a trust-based plan, you're probably, again, if you want to include all of those, which I think you should, the other documents we talked about, the healthcare directives, the HIPAA stuff, you're probably looking around $2,500 just for a complete set of things. Trust-based plans, $4,500 to $6,500. It would go up from there depending upon, you've heard of special needs trusts or something like that. That's much more complicated. That's like if you have a child with Down syndrome or something like that, where they're going to constantly need federal help. You want to make sure you don't accidentally have them inherit something, or have too much income and now they're unqualified for it. So you're essentially planning for life at that point of a young child. So that's going to be more. It's more time, more effort, a lot more people involved. But that's kind of ballpark. Again, you can probably find it cheaper. I talked to a client the other day who got quoted, I think, over $10,000 for a trust-based plan, and it wasn't a huge estate. It wasn't complicated. Sure. No, I mean, it's others, $8,000. But then they, it's almost like eating at a nice restaurant with some of these other law firms. Like, okay, it's $8,000, but each phone call is $80. Or, you want us to help you transfer assets into trust? Well, that's at $500 and this and that. So I'm not a big fan of that. One, I don't want to keep up with it, and two, actually, all my clients have my cell phone number. Like, my views, I want my clients to ask all the questions you need to while you're doing this. It's one of the more personal aspects you can get into being an attorney. So, I mean, I don't know. To me, I'd rather you ask as many questions, get it out in the open. I don't want it to be one of those where, even I'm an attorney, but I've owned other companies and still do. I use lawyers. I hesitate sometimes to write that email or pick up the phone because I'm like, is it worth $100 or not? Should I research it myself? Yeah. So I try to remove those barriers, remove that friction, just to make sure you get a plan put in place.
Well, I think, and I invite my borrowers to do this, and Hudson, I know you do too, to call our cell phones. And the reason why I want people, reaching out to me on my cell phone and reaching out to me directly, without there being a cost, obviously, is that I can avoid misconceptions, right? Because people will inherently go on the internet and WebMD it to death, right?
Yep, pretty much.
And they'll arrive at a conclusion that is inaccurate almost entirely, right, a lot of times. And they'll get cold feet in the transaction because they've read something online or whatever it may be, or they need some down payment assistance and they've done some research on a document that is years outdated, and I can do this or that. Well, that's not the case, right? We can't do that. Or I can get a loan for this amount of money. Well, they don't know that there's an underwriting process or an automated underwriting system that we utilize to get approvability, that kind of thing. So again, going back to what you're doing, by doing that, you're actually probably saving yourself a lot of time and having to have conversations to undo what they think they've learned by just providing them accurate information from the get-go and being readily available to them whenever it may be. I think that's another way to look at it. A lot of people don't look at it that way. And a lot of people and a lot of businesses don't do it at a customer service-based level. They're doing it as per transaction.
Right, exactly.
There's a lot of mortgage companies that do it that way. You're just literally a number. You're not a customer. You don't become a friend of theirs. And I can tell you a handful of times where customers of mine become friends. I'll play softball with them or volleyball or whatever it may be, or they'll end up coming because we become friends because I genuinely care about their well-being. I want to educate them as it pertains to financing and doing real estate. And 90% of millionaires made their money in real estate, right? So I want to help them do that. But for you as a estate planner, you're helping them on a lot of things that people don't think about. So again, just being readily available and helping, get through all that stuff is important. And that was a long-winded explanation. Yeah.
Well, no, I think that's part of, my job is to try and see around corners, to ask hard questions, to get you to, you talked about with your wife giving birth, like, no one wants to make those decisions under duress. Everyone's fine, everyone's healthy. Let's sit here and, and it's not everything's decided today. The whole process will take 6 weeks to, some can take 6 months, depending on how long people take to get back to me. Ideally, not 6 months. I like to do a little bit quicker. But, something else to talk about with families that have young kids like yourself is that, make sure you name like short-term and long-term guardians. And that's usually a big sticking point that younger families have. They're like, well, husband might be like, well, my brother could raise the kids, but he's a jerk. Wife's like, well, my sister would be great, but they can't afford it. And I'm like, that's perfect. And they look at me like I got like a second head. I'm like, no, like it doesn't have to be the same person. We can split it. Like, if your sister-in-law is going to be great at raising the kids, that's fine. Your brother's great with money, that's fine. He can manage the trust assets. He can do the distributions to your sister-in-law that could raise the kids. So that's kind of long-term guardian talk I have with them. And I always like to have at least like 3 backups there, something else to consider. Okay, your sister would be great at raising the kids. She's married. What if she's divorced or she's single? Would you still want her to be your first choice? Or would you then want to go to a second choice? And again, kind of drill down on these hard questions.
Wow, I never thought of that.
And then even like short-term guardians with, say you're out on a date night with your wife, you get hit by a drunk driver. You're not dead, but you're going to the hospital. You're not coming home on time. You got like a 14-year-old babysitter that the sheriff shows up knocking on the door. He can't leave your kid with the 14-year-old. So you're in the hospital. You're not coming home. Your kid's actually going to CPS unless you have short-term guardians names. So like one of the things I do, I go through, I make sure it's neighbors, it's friends. You have a document. I think other firms, I encourage other firms to do this if they don't, that you leave with the babysitter. It says, hey, here's who to call. Like, don't call the police yet. Or, if something happens, you get a phone call. Call these people. And actually, I give all my clients a little card to keep behind their driver's license that says, hey, I have kids at home waiting on me. If you're reading this, call these numbers in this order, please, and let them know. So again, it's just kind of, that's what I see my job is kind of, as you said, customer service to see around a corner, to think through things in more detail than you would, just to make sure that, again, you have a peace of mind when it's all said and done. So it's called estate planning. I almost think it's more like, life planning, kind of sets you up. A lot of people are like, oh, estate planning, that's something my grandmother should do.
Yeah, right.
No, like,
well, that's what I think.
Yeah,
of. Anytime I hear estate, I'm like, I go to an estate sale and it's like a bunch of antique furniture or old clothes.
Yep.
Is that where you got that sweater?
That is actually just my grandma.
That's awesome. So when do you recommend somebody look into estate planning? Is there a particular age? Is there a life change, getting a new job, career change, buying a house? Like what is the milestone that you're looking for to get them going?
Right, that's what I was thinking. I mean, I'm 25, about to get married in 4 months. I have no clue what point in time I should talk to somebody like you.
I'd say the big one is you're getting married. And usually people start to think about it during big life changes. Like, okay, I'm getting married, or I'm buying a house, or I'm having a kid. But really, like, we just posted something on our social media that, hey, high school graduation's coming up here in another month. Those kids that are going off to college, they'll always be your kids, but once they're 18, they're adults in the eyes of the law. Mm-hmm. You don't have the ability to, look at their medical records or take care of something if, medical, power of attorney, if something were to happen there in the hospital, make those medical decisions. Like, go ahead and get a HIPAA form signed. Like, you're no longer able to just walk in the doctor with them. Yeah. So again, it's even kind of starts, I would say, when you're 18. Like, do you need a trust when you're 18? I don't know. I mean, depending, you might. Did you start a business when you're 16, a lawn care business, and it's growing or something like that? Okay, well, maybe it makes sense. But, I tell parents, like, start the conversation with your kids as they're going off to college. They're adults. Yeah. But like I said, most people, it's, okay, I graduated from college, I'm getting married, or I'm, started my first career. Like, are you going to have as much of a detailed estate plan as someone who's, 45 with 2.5 kids and 3 dogs and all that? Probably not. But that's the nice thing. I don't think I've ever had 2 estate plans that were exactly the same. You can custom tailor each one to everyone's life situation and go.
And they can evolve it, right? They can start out with you with a very basic plan and just keep evolving this thing. I would assume it'd be, as it pertains to cost, pretty cost effective,
sure,
right, to do it that way. But then by talking to you and starting these conversations early on, right, it's going to help guide them to where they make better decisions financially. I wouldn't say you'd give them relationship advice, but maybe I don't know.
Man, I shy away from that. No,
but you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, here's what you need to think about when you're getting married. Like, you guys want
Sure.
us to do all these things, and it might bring up some tough conversations with your soon-to-be spouse, but it's conversations that need to be had, and you're provoking that thought to get people to think like that. Because again, you never know what life is going to throw at you,
Right.
what curveball,
Most
what
of the
have
time
you.
people are too scared to have those conversations.
They are,
you
but they
know,
need to. You should
unless
be able.
prompted.
Yeah, exactly.
well, no, it acts. It allows me. I don't want to say act as the bad guy, but if I'm the one posing the question, it kind of takes that. I don't know if it's fear is the right word, but
Right.
no one wants to start an argument with their spouse or significant
Exactly.
other, or
I don't know,
touch on it.
I like to do it,
Jeremy
actually.
wants to know. Yeah.
But I mean, something I do, and I think I would encourage other estate planning attorneys to do. Depending on my client's needs, I'll really reach out to them like once a year, or at the very least every 3 years. I'll just have a phone call for free. Hey, what's changed? What's new? What's happened?
Yeah.
Oh, we had another kid. We probably need to change some stuff then.
How much does it cost to change something like that? Let's say you have it in place already, a trust already, and then you need to add a child or something like that. I wouldn't.
That's not bad. That's just that's an amendment. So you can, with a trust, you can either do an amendment or a restatement. Amendments like, hey, we had 2 kids, now we have 3. We're not splitting it in half. We'll split it in thirds.
Okay.
That's pretty easy. I do tell people, if you have had like a falling out, or maybe the person's not aware you've had a falling out, and you're changing percentages for other reasons, I'd probably do a restatement of your trust, simply because an amendment just goes on the back. So if you have 4 sons and one son has upset you, and now he's gone from getting 25% to 5%, he will see in the prior trust section he was supposed to get 25%. Now he's only getting 5%. So in those situations, or if there's a whole bunch of amendments, if there's a lot that's changed, so like, okay,
Yeah.
it's going to be too hard to everyone. We're going to be flipping back and forth. People get confused to do a restatement. But most of the small things, it's an amendment. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well that's interesting. So, and I have to ask. So when there is a death in the family, let's say a spouse, what do you recommend somebody do before they sell a home?
So
Or do you have any
I guess
input
just
on
to
that?
make sure like everything's in order so that they're not running into
Yeah.
problems.
yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, how did they die? Did they die intestate? Did they have a will? Did they have a trust? If it's a trust, I mean, most of my clients have, revocable lifetime trusts. At that point, the surviving spouse would have the authority. They'd be the sole trustee. They can sell the house. There's no title
It
issues.
just makes it super easy.
Yeah, through trust, it makes it super easy. Through a will, you're going to have to probate it. And again, you want to clear up. This is more y'all's area than mine, but
I was just
obviously
curious,
you want to make sure you don't have title issues or something like that. If there's no will, there's no trust, then absolutely it's going to go through probate. Probate's basically a lawsuit you file against yourself for the benefit of your creditors after you're dead. Is kind of how I'd explain that one. So obviously things need to get paid off. Again, y'all need to clear title, that type of thing. But
I don't know why I thought of Jim Carrey and Liar Liar. I'm kicking my own ass. Do you mind?
it is a little bit like that.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
So, but I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's much more complicated than it has to be. So,
Okay, can you explain for people that don't know the difference between the types of trusts?
revocable and irrevocable.
Yeah,
So right now, as we sit here today, the estate planning exemption is like 16.1 and change million per person this year. So obviously, very large estates would go over that. You go back 15, 16 years, it was about $2 million per person. So a lot of that plays into how you would structure someone's estate planning, the size of the estate and the estate tax exemption. With a revocable trust, it's not a legal fiction, but essentially how you are the trustee, so you're the one who's in the control of all the assets, and you're also the beneficiary. You're the one who benefits. So it operates under your Social Security number, you and your spouse's Social Security number. So there's not different tax filings or anything like that. So you're free to move assets in and out of that throughout your entire life. You can buy and sell houses. If you want to put your vehicles in there, you can do that. Boats, whatever it may be, investments. You can make the trust the beneficiary of different things, as you would like a different investment account. Your bank account's an easy example. You have a checking or savings with your spouse. You'd have your spouse named as the primary beneficiary, but the trust is the secondary beneficiary. But an irrevocable trust is exactly what it sounds like, and that's used to transfer assets out of your name entirely. So you are no longer the trustee. You may be the beneficiary for life, which is fine, but it's not included in your estate, so to speak. So, and is it possible to change an irrevocable trust? Yes. Is it a monstrous duty to do? Absolutely.
Really? Okay.
So it's And again, that's much more for, avoiding estate tax purposes or something like that. I mean, you can, not to get too far down the wormhole, but like
I
if you have,
kinda wanna go down the
if you have a
road.
revocable
Yeah.
trust and, then someone dies and, the nice thing about a revocable trust is it leaves you the flexibility where, if the first spouse dies and okay, now our state is, increased, we can actually disclaim some assets, maybe pass those to the kids. Again, you'll have, I'll review other people's estate plans. And I'm like, okay, well, this was done 15 years ago. Estate tax exemption was a lot lower. Nothing's wrong with what you've done, but they kind of have a lot more strings tied to it, so to speak, just because of how it was done. And again, it also comes to, the age of the person. Are you in your 30s or 40s? Okay, great. I'm not too worried. Revocable lifetime trust, you're fine. Grandma's 99. Okay, well, we're probably going to be using this here before too long. Let's see if we do need to disclaim some assets or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So again, it's all very, it is all very client specific, and age, estate value, and even that client's goals. You'll have, you'll have some clients that are, fairly wealthy, but they don't have kids of their own. Like, I don't care if they have to pay in estate, goes through probate. I don't care. I'm not going to pay the upfront cost, whatever. I'm just giving it to nieces and nephews, and that's fine.
Let them find it out.
Yeah, they're not too concerned about it. They're like, look, I just know I need to get something in place. So, I just my job is to be a counselor. I'll lay the options on the table. And again, I like to get to know them. Like, hey, here, where do you want to go? What are your concerns? And, I'll make sure that we accomplish what you want to accomplish within the confines of the law.
Right. So how do you find new clientele? Is it just referral based, or how does that go?
So I'm fortunate. I do have, referrals. I have other clients or past clients refer them to me. Some financial planners refer them to me. Some real estate agents, friends, family. I also try to do community education events, kind of like
Perfect.
we're doing here today.
Yeah.
I've done wine and wills. I know that estate planning, as we talked about, isn't something that really people get jazzed up about. I'm like, all right, what if you had a glass of wine, on me, and we'll just sit here. I'll tell you, kind of discuss basically what we've talked here today about, and then answer questions. I genuinely, maybe it sounds corny, I actually like what I do, and I like helping people. I like setting families up for success. So it doesn't really seem like work to me. It's a conversation, but I try to make it as casual as I can as far as the setting. So it's not quite a happy hour. I'm not gonna pick up the tab for hours of rounds, but come have a glass of wine or two, and bring your spouse, ask questions, just get educated.
Have you ever thought about creating like a continuing education course for like realtors so that you can teach it so they get some type of credit?
I've had that. Yeah, I was gonna say he's brought that up to me. I do need to look more into that.
It's actually relatively easy. I mean, you got to obviously put the course together, and it's got to have some good information.
Sure.
But you can get that certified pretty easily to teach the class, and then you guys can start doing classes together to knock that out. And real estate agents obviously would love to get the credit, but just to educate themselves to then educate their clients is huge, right? So I think it'd be well worth the effort to put forth just to make that happen. Like I said, I invite everybody to kind of create CE courses that they can provide, because I mean, real estate is probably single-handedly the most important financial decision a lot of people will make. So at that point, they start looking at other things like estate planning and stuff like that. So yeah, if the realtor can provide that, like, hey, you need to talk to my guy. I did a class with him and he knows the stuff top to bottom. I think that'd just be a good thing
I think it'd be fun, actually.
Yeah. So do you own the company yourself, or are you a partner?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's me.
You gonna scale it up, or what's the game plan?
Yeah, I mean, so scale it up. I'm kind of big on. We talked before we got started here. I've owned other businesses. Still do own a couple businesses. So I'm big on kind of systems and processes, if that makes sense. And everyone talks about, this might be a little bit off topic, but everyone's like, oh, hire someone who's smarter than you. I don't know how you're supposed to ever know that. So I hire people that are
I've tried to hire Elon Musk because he won't take the job.
Go figure, man. I hire people that are good at things I'm not good at, or like doing things I don't like to do. So I like meeting with clients. I like coming up with a plan. You don't want me like tapping on the keyboard though. Like, can I get it done? Yes. Will it take me 10 times as long? Will my drafter? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So no, obviously I am kind of selective with the clients I take. I don't want to just get big for the sake of getting big. I want to make sure that, from my first client to my last client, everyone gets the same level of customer service. So that's kind of, I don't want to say it's a limiting factor. Maybe it's a self-limiting factor. But no, I mean, we certainly still have plenty of bandwidth. I'm out in Aledo, Parker County. So most of my clients are Parker County, Western Tarrant County. We get some of Johnson County as well, too. Joshua, Burleson area. So that's kind of that area.
I'm just curious, to ask that question, I think you get to see a lot about the person, right? You know, a lot of people are like, man, I just want to get this real big. And so if I've talked to a couple of other business owners who I thought their heart was in the business that they were in, but then they were like, oh no, I plan on selling this in a few years. So now you know what they're doing. They're literally just trying to run this thing up to be as big as possible to dump it. But that doesn't obviously sound like your goal, you know. No. And you know, in my business, that's not my goal either. I don't want to sell my clientele off to somebody else, you know, or pass it off to another loan officer. I want to do it myself, build these relationships. But with any business, there's always growing pains, and you're going to run into to things. But yeah, I mean, that's just the goal, is just to keep growing it organically, you know.
Absolutely.
So,
and for somebody who, like, you know, may not know a whole lot about a trust and kind of all that goes into it, what kind of like maintenance is there for a trust, like throughout the year, right? Is there a lot that you're going to have to do with it, or are you going to have to, you know, really even worry about it through the year? Is it one of those things you kind of just complete and then let it sit?
So something you have to do when you create a trust is you need to fund it. So I work with my clients. I give them a very detailed, you know, funding instructions for about any type of asset I've ever encountered. But at the same point, I'm also say, you know, call me and I'll walk you through it. And I kind of give them some tips and stuff. But the easiest thing to do when you form a trust, go open up a checking account in the name of the trust, separate checking account from the ones you already have. All you need is a certificate of trust, driver's license, or, you know, your bank probably has a form too. It's going to be under your social security number. I tell people put emergency money in there. You know, if you're able to, $5,000 or more. The reason I explain that is, you know, you'll have, even if you have a trust or you have transfer on death certificates with different investments, those will eventually make their way into the trust and the estate. But if something happens to you and your spouse, if you're killed in a car wreck, that's going to take, you know, again, a death certificate's got to, you know, be filed and all that. So it'll take a little while for those assets to funnel into the trust. If you have a checking account in the name of the trust, your backup trustee can give me a call, or any law firm come in, you know, and say, hey, you know, we got to change the certificate of trust. Your trustee, here's the new beneficiaries. You can walk in. They can get access to that money same day. Just not to be morbid, but, you know, a couple dies, they're huge expenses right off the bat, funeral expenses, all that. So this is a way just to ensure that, one, your trust is funded, but there's also that kind of emergency fund that if someone needs access to it, so that, you know, your loved one, I mean, it's not everyone's in a position where, okay, I can just take a $20,000 hit today to cover, I'll get paid back, but don't always just have that sitting in a checking account. So again, it's to make sure that you again fund your trust, but it's not, to answer your questions, it's not like an LLC. There's not, you know, minutes aren't kept or anything like that. You know, what I also do with anyone who does a trust plan, you get a will, but it's a bit of a different will. It's called a pour over will, which is kind of a safety net. A pour over will basically says, hey, look, you know, if you went out and you bought a boat and you put it in your name, you didn't put it in the name of the trust and you passed away, it says, hey, look, you know, anything that's titled in my name that's not in the name of the trust will automatically be transferred into the name of the trust upon my passing. Again, just keeping you out of probate.
Gotcha.
So, so there's maintenance. That's why I say, like, I talk to my clients, you know, every year, but, you know, most every 3 years I invite them, you know, give me a call. Let's talk. What's changed? You know, what's happened? You know, we sold something, we bought something, we had another kid, whatever. So there is some maintenance with, you know, the big life experiences, life changes. But if it's just, you know, no, nothing's really changed from last year to this year. You know, my investments went up a little bit, but no, there's no change.
You're not charging for the phone call, so have a phone call.
Yeah,
right?
Give me a call. Yeah.
Educate yourself. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Educate yourself in every facet of your life. I mean, honestly, just keep learning, right?
Sure.
Research,
I mean, you're a toolbox, and you're just taking tools to put in that toolbox.
Yeah, definitely. So I had to ask. I mean, like I said, we can go all over the place. So what was the business that you're selling again? It's a landscaping company?
So I own a commercial landscape company currently. You know, during COVID and whatnot, you know, court shut down, this and that. So I'd looked into just diversifying income streams, so to speak, which company does well. I mean, I enjoy it. I'm not out there pushing the mowers, but occasionally I do. I'll help the guys out with bigger jobs. But no, just in the process of selling that. I think we close on Wednesday. So that's.
You just can't sit still, can you?
I can't. You know, I mean.
Don't worry, I can't either.
No, I mean, I've. So it's. Yeah.
No, I'm just curious. You know, like, you know, I think I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's when you are an entrepreneur, you like running a business, you're always thinking about other ways to make money and do things. And obviously COVID was a big thing. You know, people's primary source of income kind of went to the wayside for a bit, especially doing what you do. So, you know, jumping into something else, I mean, your mind's always going like how to make more money, how to do better. And just your life experience with that. I mean, you can, as you're doing those free phone calls, talk to people about whatever they're doing too, just to kind of guide them. Like, man, this is what I did, this is how I did it. So yeah, just providing your life experience back to them is a huge plus, right? And you're easy to talk to, so I think it's a good thing too, right? So, yeah. You got anything else, brother?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I mean,
You learn anything today?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're about to get married. You guys need to
Yep.
have a conversation,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
CE classes, you gotta do that.
Gotta have that conversation.
So when are you getting married again?
Jeremy told me to tell you this. Getting married in August, yeah.
So you need to start pretty quick then,
That's
right?
right.
Don't
Yeah,
you
we-
advise that?
About 4 months, and then we're going on the honeymoon, and
Where are you going?
going to Tahiti.
No, you're not.
Yes, we are. That's right. That's right.
So you guys need to really have the conversation though, really, and start
Yeah.
planning that whole thing out because that's a big thing.
Oh, we sure do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Yeah, have me be the bad guy. Be like, hey, I had this guy on the podcast says I got to ask you all these questions, babe.
Awesome.
Now, I will say, we've been pretty proactive about it. We've had those conversations, but we haven't talked to anybody about it.
Yeah.
We've just had those conversations between ourselves, and honestly, I'll say it's because of Grey's Anatomy.
Why is
we
that?
were watching Grey's Anatomy, and episode popped up where spouse dies, of course, as they do in Grey's Anatomy.
Was it a
and
car accident?
It was a car accident. Yeah. And she, she was like, "What would you do if I died in a car accident?" I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be horrible, obviously, but
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do with my life. With I don't know how all that legality goes. So.
Way beyond legality, one of the big things I do with my clients is actually help them get financially organized, if that makes sense. So the example I use is like, hey, if something happened to, I don't know, your sister or you and your spouse, and it's your sister that comes into your house, she'd probably think you got a checking account. She'd probably think you had a savings account. She had no idea what bank it was even at, or is there life insurance? Probably, I don't know through who, or investments, saving. Where do they even find that stuff? And even with spouses, sometimes spouses don't always know, like, okay, what's the password to our bank, or where do we bank again, or who is our insurance through, or how do I do this? So a lot of what I do, like when I'm done with my clients, I get a binder. Everything's in there, instructions, what it is, how to use it, when to use it. But in the back, I always make sure, like, let's leave some tabs back there where put in where everything is at. And those, when you go to maintenance, that is kind of the maintenance stuff. Hey, yeah, I opened up a new Charles Schwab account. Okay, put that in there.
Right.
Just make sure that, again, set your family up for success. So that is part of what I do, and I probably should have addressed that earlier, is get all your financial stuff together in one spot. I mean, it's good to have the legal documents, but if you don't know where the hell you're supposed to take those, it doesn't do you a lot of good. So again, it's just kind of getting people financially organized.
I had a question now that it come up that we're sitting there talking about it. So, as it pertains to cryptocurrency, right? You
Okay.
can have like a cold key or whatever where you transfer the funds to it, and there's usually like a 32 random word,
Something.
right? So, as it pertains to like the storage of the password to access that type of stuff, is that something that can be put in a trust, or what do you recommend with that?
So I recommend definitely not in a will, because the will's public. With a trust, what I say is just put that in the binder. It's not actually technically it's not an exhibit to the trust. Mm-hmm. Put that in the binder. Usually what I tell people is like, hey, look, I'm going to give you a binder. I also give them everything on a USB drive too. If you have a safe, great. Put it in your safe. If you don't have one, just go buy a simple fireproof safe. Mm-hmm. Put it in the safe. Put the safe someplace, you know where it's at. Contact the people you've named as like a backup trustee or whatever it may be. Let them know where the safe is and what the combination is to the safe. And then that way they can open it, access it. Now I'll give you the legal documents that, this age of social media, that, okay, yes, you can be a successor, to the social media and all that. That takes time. A lot easier that, okay, yeah, you have the legal authority, but now you also have the password and whatnot. So,
okay. Oh, wow.
Talking about those binders, actually, Kaylee had brought up, there's things called like the lockbox or something that you can buy that's essentially like a fireproof box,
Mm-hmm.
but it comes with, all of these organizational things for, finances, passwords,
Mm-hmm.
The will,
Yeah.
all of these different things that I just, I thought was super cool. And it was, kind of mainstreamed it in terms of, it was promoting itself on social media to people who, might not typically think about, having something like
That's
that.
going to be in all of our Facebook feeds today. Thanks a lot.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, no, I turned my phone off, so y'all are getting the ads. not me.
Somehow, man, it's going to pop up there. I don't know how
Yeah,
it happens.
yeah. No, you're right.
but
It probably doesn't matter.
They
if
don't
it's
track
off.
us
Yeah,
at all.
no, not at all. Yeah.
That's awesome. So again, with the passcodes and stuff like that, with cryptocurrency, again, just putting it in a safe, just as normal.
I mean, that's kind of what I usually advise. Now, if you want to get like way down the rabbit hole, I don't know a ton about cryptocurrency enough that, yeah, I have some clients that have had it, but, and I've talked with them. Okay, how do we actually get in there? How do you do it? You don't want to put logins or passwords in it, but put it in that binder. Again, that's my goal, is to at least point, think of it, if a perfect stranger has to come into your house, like one that you obviously trust, but Are they going to know where your things are, how to access them? You just kind of want to, go through that mindset. And something else I tell people, walk through your house. Like, not everything you want to pass along is going to be of monetary value. Like, I think in my office behind my desk, I have a milk bottle that is from my great-grandfather's dairy and ranch that just sits up there. I've got fishing flies my grandfather hand-tied in like a little shadow box. At a garage sale, they're worth $1. Monetary value, not much, but if you know that, the family history behind those items, those would be things you'd want to keep. So it's, again, something I work with my clients on. Like, go through and, list out some of these things. Take a picture if you want and put that in there.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't think about all things. Like, I went through a divorce a few years back, and I just assumed that my things would be my things and her things would be her things, not listed in the divorce. So, we obviously discussed the big ticket items, TVs and some furniture and vehicles and what all of it, all that fun stuff. But in the divorce decree, I didn't even pay attention to this. It said at the signing of this document, essentially all the items at the residence are her items, which happened to be my freaking clothes and like family pictures and all this stuff. So then I'm going back. I'm like, can I have these things? And she's like, no, they're mine. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you gonna do with that?
Right.
So it was
Thrift
this
store,
huge
buddy.
argument,
Yeah.
and you don't think about those small things. And even today, I'll go back. I'm like, man, where is that? So then I'm having to go back and I'm like, can you look for that? I think you have it, and you just don't know, but you don't think about those types of things. And so again, coming to you about estate planning, helping you think about that, provoke that thought is insanely important, because I thought I was pretty intelligent. I thought I was reading the document and I assumed it to be one way, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just an idiot. I don't really know.
I don't know.
But perfect though. Perfect example is that you just don't know what you don't know until you get shown that you didn't know it. And you're asking for Halloween decorations and you don't get them till Christmas. So anyways, man, we really do appreciate you taking the time.
Likewise.
Honestly, dude, it was a lot of fun.
Agreed.
Like I said,
Thank you.
We'll do some more stuff down the road, I think.
Sure, happy to.
As things change and get updated, and we'll obviously follow each other on social media so that we can kind of see it. And
You bet.
I'll put this on social media and we'll share it with everybody. So
Awesome.
I appreciate you guys.
Fun.
So
Yeah.
definitely.
Absolutely.
All right.